And time now for the press review. And time to take a look at what's making headlines across the globe. And today I'm joined by Solange Moujan. Hello, Solange.
Hi, Annette.
And papers across the world, not surprisingly, are covering that attack on those oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman.
Yeah, indeed. This image of smoke billowing from the oil tanker is pretty much on the front pages of papers across the globe, and such as The Guardian or Der Tagesspiegel. But when it comes to the Iranian press, the Tehran Times is focusing instead on the Supreme Leader's meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan as a possible way, potentially, of showing where Iran dialogue is possible and where it is not. The paper quotes the Supreme Leader as saying that Iran has no trust in the U.S. and that dialogue with Washington is out of the question. And they will not, quote, repeat bitter experience of negotiating with them, here referring to Donald Trump's ditching the nuclear deal. Now, the Iran Daily, they also cover this, calling dialogue with Washington useless. But the paper says that for Iran, regional dialogue is imperative. They have an article today about a tweet by Iran's foreign minister that says the attack was suspicious. Again, here the Iranian press is following with Tehran's denials that they had anything to do with the attacks. They warn of, quote, the regional ill-wishers who stand to benefit from regional instability, end quote.
So how is the American media covering these attacks?
Well, the New York Times has an interesting piece that argues that Tehran and Washington have become, quote, mutual enablers going up the very unsteady escalatory ladder, end quote. But the Times argues that Trump has in the past weeks wavered on how to deal with Iran, with the administration, quote, trying to find a line between deterrence and provocation, something the Times says the Iranians are struggling with too. This what now question is raised as well in the Washington Post. In an opinion piece, the paper asks whether the Iran-U.S. tinderbox is about to ignite. They go through the assessments of different U.S. officials, with the main takeaway being exactly what the Iranian press is saying, that the Supreme Leader will not negotiate with Donald Trump. But that doesn't get us any closer to knowing what's going to happen next.
Now, the next question is what is the Arab media saying about all of this?
Yeah, the London-based pan-Arab paper Al-Quds Al-Arabi says the problem isn't the fact or interpretation of who actually attacked the tankers. It's the military buildup and the, quote, great fire that's being cooked up when there are lots of other fires going on in the region, i.e. conflicts and tensions in Yemen, Syria, Israel, the Palestinian territories. So many quote-unquote fires that Al-Quds fears there may not be enough water in the Gulf of Oman to put them out.
Okay, change of pace and turning now to Switzerland, where there is going to be a national strike by women this Friday.
Yes, women are demanding greater pay and gender equality. And today's Le Temps is partially actually in an incomprehensible language. There's unspell-checked text, missing articles and columns, and an unsigned editorial. For the paper is saying on its cover and in its entire paper that the entire newspaper is abandoned when one gender is missing.
But today's strike has historical significance, doesn't it, Solange?
It does. Le Temps sort of has an explainer for non-Swiss citizens, and it goes into how today is a symbolic day for Swiss men and women. How on June 14th, 1991, 500,000 women, for a country of 4 million people, were in the streets asking for equality. And the paper says that some things actually haven't changed much since then, that still today women earn on average 12% less than men, and pensions because of part-time work and a lack of childcare are often much lower. A gap that the cartoonist Herman refers to in his cartoon for the Tribune de Genève. And you have a group of purple-clad women under a strike banner with women saying, we are all the same, and one woman saying, I'm pretty happy with my salary, but not happy with all of the salaries of women. Now, this perhaps or perhaps not is a bit of teasing about how Switzerland's image of being an uber-wealthy country.
Shifting now to sports, and this is probably exciting news, let's admit, for North American viewers, particularly those who follow the NBA.
Yeah, and especially Canadians. The Toronto Raptors have just won the National Basketball Finals. Now, this is the first time the Toronto Star tells us that a Canadian team has won the American Basketball Cup, and perhaps The U.S. press on the other end isn't too happy about it. USA Today says the Raptors should be celebrated, but the win comes with an asterisk, they say, that the injuries of the players on the losing team, the Golden State Warriors, robbed them of the victory. Sore losers or not, Canadians are celebrating.
Solange, you have something that is so mind-boggling that it's almost impossibly hard to believe.
Yeah, when I read this article, I actually, no way, came out of my mouth. It's quite gross, so if you don't have a strong stomach, tune out. But The Guardian tells us how a British explorer announced yesterday that he has decided to send the toes that he lost to frostbite in the Yukon to a bar in Dawson City. And there's an old bootlegger's tradition there where you drink whiskey and have to touch the dead toe with your lips. Well, according to The Guardian, 100,000 people have allegedly tried it, but The Guardian says, and I have to agree here, Annette, it's enough to make you want to stop drinking.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
That is truly gross.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Okay,
whatever. Right, if you want to take a look at the stories that we've been talking about in the press review, you can, of course, head to our website, that being France24.com.